Hey guys, what's up? It's Adam here, aka Cena Guy. Right, coming to the end to the Karate Kid franchise. The next Karate Kid came out of the year of 1994, I believe. Let's quickly look this up. Yeah, 1994. Official release date September 9th of 1994. This is where I'm ending the Karate Kid films, everybody. Don't give a shit about the remake. I don't want to see the remake. No disrespect to Jackie Chan. But, you know, the first Karate Kid movie, you know, a childhood favourite that I've seen countless times. And I know for a fact, even without seeing the remake, you know, I know for a fact it ain't going to come to nowhere near my likings for what I have for the original Karate Kid movie. I'm not saying the next Karate Kid movie was going to be a disaster or anything like that. I'm just not interested. I don't want to see a remake of a childhood favourite, basically. So no disrespect, I'm just not interested. Now this movie, straight up got a lot of hate. I've just got done watching this movie moments ago, you know, trying to relive the times where I was younger and I was into karate. You know, I held a brown belt in karate when I was a kid. Being a big fan of the previous three movies, I mean, the first movie is a childhood favourite. Second one, I think, is a pure brilliant sequel. Number three, I'm like, you know what I mean? That film had a lot of problems. But this movie, the one that got all the hatred, you know, I watched it and it's been a while since I've watched this movie. I mean, when I first got it on Blu-ray, I didn't really check it out straight away. I bought the whole Karate Kid collection, you know, separately on separate Blu-rays, and this was with it. And this was the first time I actually watched this movie on Blu-ray. Now, the next Karate Kid, I remember on my previous account, I did a big rant on this movie. I kind of just went ahead with everybody else, saying the fourth one was a big pile of shit. You know, I agree with everybody's hatred, but after just rewatching it again, I was like, I think I over-exaggerated. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't hate this movie. I agree when people say it's the most unneeded film. I mean, there was no need to make this movie. You know, I agree with that. I agree with some silly things in this movie, like the monks dancing to the music while Hilary Swank's character is like trying to do a kata, and the monks start dancing to the music. There's a goofy scene with the monks bowling. You know, they do a prayer, and when the ball goes into the gutter, you know, it comes out the gutter and knocks down all the cones, and you know, and so there's some goofy moments in this movie, and they're usually the moments where people say, "Oh, we can't take this movie seriously. We fucking hate the movie." But I think that's over-exaggerating. I admit there were some silly scenes, but they weren't silly up to the point where I'd say, "What the fuck is going on here?" You know, why they put this in this sort of movie? I didn't do that. I admit I chuckled the first few times I saw that for the first time. So I say, at the end of the day, I think it was just like the monk characters, like trying to develop some sort of personality. I mean, like a comedy side of it. You know what I mean? So I suppose it would work for this sort of movie to have that sort of stuff in it. So for people to really hate on the movie because of scenes like that, I think it's ridiculous, basically. I didn't have no problem, you know, with anything like that. I mean, it's the first Karate Kid movie that didn't star, you know, Ralph Macchio, you know, as Daniel. Obvious reason he's grew up. You know, he was considered a little bit too old for his role in Part 3. You know, he was like, I don't know how old he was in Part 3 now, but he was like playing still a younger teenager, and that's why they delayed the love scene with him and that girl, Jessica Andrews, in Part 3. But in this movie, it's the first movie without him. Pat Morita comes back for the fourth time. And the film opens up with him attending this, this meeting, like for people in the war. And he meets up with the widow of somebody who he knew in the army, basically. And she's looking after a granddaughter by the name of Judy Pierce, who's played by Hilary Swank. Now, right off the bat, I will say I didn't have a problem with Hilary Swank in this movie. Okay? I'm not very familiar with other films that she's been in, but you mention the name Hilary Swank, I immediately think of this film. You know what I mean? I mean, at the start of the film, I was like, the character's too bitchy, too whiny, but I warmed up to her, if that makes sense. I warmed up to the character. At the end of the day, she's playing a young girl who's just lost her parents. You know, she's very bitter, very angry at life. You know, she doesn't want to trust anybody. She's afraid to trust anybody, get too close to them because she feels like she'll lose them. You know, she's not doing well at school. You know, she's very bitter, very angry, snaps too easily. And that's due to, you know, the traumatizing feelings of her losing her parents, basically. Anyway, Mr. Miyagi tells the old woman to go away, put her feet up, and he agrees to look after the house and Judy appears while she's away, basically. And throughout the whole movie, it's all about Mr. Miyagi trying to bond with Julie. That's what it's all about. Only they think it's going to take a different turn because, you know, Hilary Swank's female. It's not like in the first movie where it's Daniel, you know, working with a male. And even Mr. Miyagi even said that at the point where he was like waxing the car. He was saying, boys are easier. You know what I mean? You know, we learn a bit more background. I mean, the school where Judy goes to, there's this, like this, you know, this karate lesson place. I mean, the gang of teenagers in this movie were trying to be badass like the Cobra Kai's, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't think there was that many convincing. I mean, they're just like bullies, basically. You know, trying to be like the Cobra Kai's. But one thing that really stood out to this movie is the teacher of this little karate setup. What's his name now? Michael Ironside played him, Colonel Paul Dugan. Now, I like Michael Ironside. I think he's a great actor. He's made countless movies over the years. I mainly remember him from The Watchers, Free Willy, Starship Troopers. You know, he's been in loads of roles that I've liked. And I think he's a really good actor. You know, and he plays like the teacher in this movie of the one who's, you know, again, teaching the kids the wrong style of karate, you know, and giving them, you know, being bad influence and all that. I mean, one of the students called Eric in this movie, I thought he did a fine job in his role. He leaves the group, you know, because he refuses to like try and make his teacher look like a badass. You know, he even did that when he refused to attack him, like during one of the lessons. You know, he's the guy that Hilary Swank falls in love with, basically. You know, and he works as a security guard at this railway place. I mean, there's a scene where Judy and Eric are talking. They learn about each other's backgrounds. They have a crush on each other, but it starts off slow, but then it slowly bonds, and you can see that as it slowly goes along. You know, Mr. Miyagi tells Julie that that her grandfather saved his life. You know, and Julie says that when she was younger, her father, before he died, used to teach her karate and all that kind of stuff. Well, during a little bit of an argument, you know, Hilary Swank's character does like, I don't know what it's called, like this maneuver because she nearly gets hit by this guy by delivering this pizza. She like does this move and appears, you know, falls on the bonnet and like it was a trained move basically. And Mr. Miyagi knew straight away that she's got some sort of karate background, you know. So you got some bonding a lot during this movie. You know, there's a scene where Julie breaks into the school at night because we learn that she's looking after a hawk, you know, on top of the roof of the schools. You know, there's a scene where she goes into school and she gets, you know, confronted by the karate gang. You know, they chase her throughout the school where she's trying to hide from them because she's trying to feed and look after the hawk. You know, she tells the secret to Mr. Miyagi that she's trying to look after a hawk and called Angel. You know, so dibs and dabs here. You do get a little bit of storytelling about the purpose of the movie, about the purpose of the characters. You know, I mean, after when she breaks into the school and she gets suspended, Mr. Miyagi takes her to this place where all these monks are, and that's where he starts training her karate. You know, different styles of karate. I mean, you think to yourself, did he take Daniel to this place, or because the karate training in this movie seems a little bit more into what was going on. You know, there's a scene where he tells Judy to do a kick from a large rock to a small rock. There's a scene where he takes her into a bar and she's doing blocking maneuvers to all these sandbags that have been thrown. You know, while Judy's there, she's been taught to respect nature and life more because at dinner she tries to kill a cockroach. the monk saved the cockroach, and Julie appears to, learn more to respect living things, so she gets some self-confidence back. Mr. Miyagi thinks that the monks will make a great impression on her, to make her less angry, make her look at life differently, and learn karate in the meantime. So he's trying to boost her confidence in some sort of way, and she does that. She boosts a little bit of confidence. I mean, it's a birthday in one of the scenes. The monks give her a birthday cake, sing her happy birthday, and she wants the monks to come and visit them in the house, where Mr. Miyagi and her are staying, So I thought the monks were interesting characters, but again, one thing that people really put hate on this movie was the goofiness with the monks, like the scenes I mentioned, like at the start of this film. There's a scene where they're dancing to Julia's music while she's trying to do a kata, and there's a scene where Mr. Miyagi takes them bowling, they get gutter balls, they pray, and they end up getting strikes, They thought they were goofy scenes and they weren't needed in the movie, but I didn't have a problem with that, I can understand why people put hatred on certain movies because of ridiculous scenes, but I didn't see these scenes ridiculous. I mean, I thought it was a good, comedy personality side of the monks. You know what I mean? I thought, I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with it. Again, with this movie, I didn't think the acting was the problem. I thought Pat Morita did a good job as Mr. Miyagi in this movie. I thought Hilary Swank did a good job of portraying an angry teenager. Again, at the start of the film, I was like, this character's going to be too bitchy to like. But then you start to feel for her, you start to warm up to her, where she starts becoming more happier and more self-confident. So the acting wasn't a problem in this movie. The acting wasn't the problem. When people say it was the most unneeded film, then yeah, I can agree, because this is not one of them types of movies that would get released in the cinema or theatres. It seems like the type of movie that would get straight released to DVD. You know what I mean? So I did not hate the movie. I've seen more worse movies than this, trust me. I think we all have. The fact that it wasn't needed, was part 3 needed? You know what I mean? To tell you the truth, I think you only needed the first 2 Karate Kid movies, part 1 and part 2. You know what I mean? So the movie felt there. It was just there, you know what I mean? It's not an outstanding movie, and it's not a disastrous movie. It just was just there. You know what I mean? Unneeded, I can agree with those terms, but I don't agree with the hatred that it got. I can watch this movie. Don't get me wrong, it's the last Karate Kid movie I'd choose out the whole bunch, to watch on a movie field now, basically. I'd easily watch the first 2 movies, Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid Part 2. Watch them any day. You know what I mean? But this would be one of my last picks, if that makes sense. It would be one of my last picks. It definitely doesn't hold a candle to the first 2 movies. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like in comparison to Part 3, but seemed like a lower level wise. You know what I mean? I mean, when we get to the end scene in this, there's a scene where Eric takes Judy to the dance. These guys do a dare, a bungee jump in the gym. One of them ends up getting their arm broken. There's this massive grudge. There's a scene where his car's windows get smashed, and they go to the docks. They blow up Eric's car. Eric gets ganged up on by all the Karate Kid students. The karate students. He ends up getting beat up. And basically, it's just Julie sticking up for herself in a fight, and Mr. Miyagi has the final scene, with the teacher, Dugan, basically. And I would say this wasn't an outstanding moment. Don't get me wrong, in some ways it felt like Pat Morita's character, Mr. Miyagi, had more to do in this movie than he did in Part 3. But Pat Morita, I've said this from the other previous reviews, he was not considered a martial artist or anything like that. I'd have to say he moved more slower in this movie. The guy's an old man, you know what I mean? But it did feel like he was more slower in this movie compared to all the other movies. Like when he does the kick, he doesn't lift his leg very high and all that kind of stuff. So he tries to put on this karate performance, the best he can, the best he can, but he did seem very slow, and it seemed like there were certain scenes where his opponent moved slower so he could keep up with him, But he did a fine job for what it was. It was just a final showdown on the docks, you know what I mean? So the definition of the movie, it's just like Judy Pierce, gained self-confidence. It was like similar to the story in the first one. Standing up to bullies, gained self-confidence, learning karate, looking at life differently. Only that he was with a girl. You know what I mean? But overall, talking about this movie, not a masterpiece, but it shouldn't have got the hatred that it got. I mean, there's one thing that I haven't mentioned yet. One thing I love about this movie is the music. I love the music in this movie. I thought it was really nice. Had a sweet feeling to it. It's like the scene where they release Angel, the hawk, into the wild after a broken wing, and it flies away. I love the music in that scene. I thought this had great music. Very touching music for touching scenes, basically, with the hawk flying away back into the wild, and I thought it was a nice touch. Okay. So that's my review for the next Karate Kid, everybody. And we've come to an end of this franchise now. We're going to move on to a different franchise in the next reviews, so we'll just have to see where we go from here. But that's it now. That's the whole Karate Kid franchise reviewed. Please like, rate, and comment this, and email if you've got any questions. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day.